Wednesday, January 15th, 2025, 6 p.m. meeting of the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. Welcome, everybody, and I hope this will be the last time I get to say Happy New Year. In the middle of the month already, but it is for us who haven't gotten together since December breakfast and November minutes that we have in our packet. All right, any changes to the agenda? Hearing and seeing, I'm sorry?
Not that I know of. Nope.
Okay. Hearing, seeing none, we'll go over the draft minutes of the November 20th, 2024 board meeting that's in your packet. It'll need a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Andy. I'm sorry I didn't catch the second.
Catherine.
Catherine, thank you. Appreciate it. And discussion.
I'm good.
Jackie.
Oh, I can't believe I found this, Catherine, and you didn't. Page 2, line 49. Connors is spelled C-O-N-O-T-S. So it needs to be.
I didn't
corrected.
even pay attention to that. I'm so used to seeing Connor. That's all I saw.
I just can't believe that.
I know. That's very good.
Well, Connors connotes, I guess.
Yeah.
Further discussion? Okay with you, Andy? Okay with you, Catherine?
Yep.
Amended. All right. Then all those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Mm.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining, please speak up now. Thank you. We're going to ask the members of the public if there are any members of the public here now. Item agenda 3 for comment on any items that are not on tonight's agenda. Anyone here from the public?
Yes, I am Lisa Sheffler, Town of Milton.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
I just want to throw it out there that I've been working in public works for nearly 17 years now, and we are allowed to apply for funding to build sidewalks and bike paths and construct all these things, but we are never able to find money to maintain them. And I would like to have regional planning in the UPWP see if they can find money to actually go back and maintain these, because after they've been built for 10, 12 years, things start to fall apart and they need maintenance. And we've yet to been able to find a place where we can maintain them, the existing infrastructure.
Excellent point. I think we see Burlington's latest effort to 3 million or something for their sidewalks 2-3 years ago. And I know South Burlington was considering a similar measure on our town meeting ballot that we dropped for this March, but in which we would want to convert some of our existing open space funds for use on maintenance of our bike paths, specifically similar to the sidewalks. But I hear what you're saying, Lisa, and it's a very good point. Are there other concerns with that? Do you have many bike paths there in Milton as well? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar.
We don't in Milton, but I worked in Williston for many years, and we had a lot there. And Milton, it's a lot of sidewalks, and the slabs, as you know, shift and they deteriorate, and they become not ADA compliant more than bike paths do. But it's a missing link that we cannot get funding for as a municipality to maintain these things.
Well, I'll ask Charlie if he knew off the top of his head, that he just blanked out, I'm afraid. Which committee might be best to focus on that? And Patty Davis, you have your hands up. I'm sorry. Go ahead. If that's related to this. Is it?
Yes, she made a very, very good point. Thank you from Milton. But I can go last if someone else wants to speak first before me, because I'm very organized, and I'm just going to read off what I have to say, but it's very much related. All
right. I wanted Charlie to help us find a landing spot for Lisa's concern.
Sure. If you want to answer her question first, I'm patient.
Sure. Hang on a second, Charlie.
Oh, I don't think there's a great answer for Lisa's question, other than, typical municipal budgets, because none of the funding agencies that I'm aware of really are in the maintenance funding business. So until you get to replace it, right? So But we're kind of taking these comments in, Chris. We'll compile them as part of the UPWP conversation and also bring them to the UPWP committee.
Sure. And Lisa, again, South Burlington's practice is, for some reason, our usual pot that we dip into is unfortunately the paving fund. And of course, that becomes paving of both roads and the sidewalks because they're equally important for transportation. Why do we prioritize cars over sidewalks? So again, I'm just going to share my experience on that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Patty, please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Very, very good point that you just made, that people are more important than cars. So good evening. Our neighborhood is facing a grave inequity, and this may tie into that last speaker. Approximately 2 years ago, our town officials placed an overweight permit sign on our town highway road, Lower Sandhill Road. This is not only allowing semi-trucks to bisect our residentially zoned community, R2, it's suppressing the voices of the most impacted who just moved here from Nepal and other very racially diverse families impacted. Some are unable to speak English. This is where I'm going to need your advice maybe at the end of the meeting because I don't want to take away time. This decision by our town officials has imposed an environmental burden on our families, disrupting our peaceful environment, increasing harmful air pollution, and creating safety hazards for all who live here. We deserve to live without fear of environmental harm and without the threat of losing the sanctity of their homes, especially the people on Lower Sandhill Road. We live on the upper echelon, the higher up, but I can't stand what I'm seeing, so I really wanted to share this, so thank you very much. This is not just a matter of inconvenience, it is an issue of justice, equity, and basic human dignity. We ask that our town officials reconsider this decision and ensure that all residents, regardless of their economic status or ability to speak out, are protected from these harmful practices. I actually walked down Sand Hill Road for the first time with my corgi. So I will give you the examples of the inequity in our neighborhood that I saw. Today was unbelievable. First of all, the aging demographic and young families at risk. Our neighborhood is home to both an aging population and young families with children. Yet the infrastructure around us is not safe, just like the Milton resident just spoke about. Our road that leads to our school halfway up is frequently used by large semi-trucks. On Lower Sandhill, where these young Nepalian families live, 4 of them just moved in these apartments, have to negotiate with a stroller and young kids in tow, a narrow white line just 10 inches from the curb going up Sandhill Road from their home. This creates dangerous conditions for young children, not only walking, but wanting to bike to school. These families walking with strollers must walk this strip of road until they reach a crumbling, uneven sidewalk that has not been maintained. I see living on Hillside Circle, we can afford to move if we had to. I see them on the sidewalk in the AM as I walk Zoe, our corgi, at Saxon Hollow Park, which is across the road. The stretch of Sandhill Road to the end of Allen Martin is not plowed in the winter, further isolating them. To make matters worse, I saw this family last summer stand in the tall, uncut grass at the bus stop at the bottom of Sandhill with still no sidewalk at the bottom. And I called the town immediately and just screamed, "This is inhumane." I wanted to experience this myself. So today I walked down Sandhill to the bottom and had to carry our corgi Zoe to avoid the traffic. And she's only 10 inches wide. My husband risks his life biking in this area because trucks do not give him enough space. So not only do I see the discriminatory infrastructure for immigrant families, but I see, like the last woman that spoke, a failure to maintain basic infrastructure in a residential zoned area. I'm almost done. The 2 crosswalks with flashing lights lead to nowhere, which is from Sandhill to Allen Martin. That's where the trucks bisect. They keep going up to 15. These two crosswalks lead to crumbling, unkept sidewalks that are now unplowed because it's winter. I have personally last year assisted an elderly woman who got stuck in the snowbank at the other side of the crosswalk. She had a cane and was struggling to get out. This is a glaring example of how our infrastructure fails to meet the needs of differently abled or elderly individuals. So one more thing, I watched Across the Fence yesterday, and in Vermont, this representative from Lamoille County, I forget his name, said in Vermont, there are 183,000 of us over 60 in Vermont now. But in the year 2000, there were only 64,000 of us. These examples clearly highlight the different inequities faced by both the aging population that we need to deal with and the immigrant families in our mixed-use neighborhood. You know, when I say mixed use, meaning mixed income neighborhood, underscoring the need for improvements in infrastructure maintenance, our health and safety, and not putting environmental burdens on us with a truck route within our residential zone. So you will be getting a lot of letters from my neighbors, and a lot of them are multiracial and all different backgrounds, even on Hillside Circle, where we can afford to move away. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It took a lot out of me, so thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. And I think this is, Patty, something that you've brought to us before, or someone in your neighborhood has brought to us before, if I'm not mistaken. Can I set the location correctly? Is this Essex?
Essex Town, Sand
Yes.
Hill Road, which is
Yep.
a class 2 highway residential zone, medium density.
Familiar. And I think the area you're speaking about, Lower Sand Hill, would be coming up off of 117. Is that correct?
That's right. And
Okay.
that's right. And apparently, I don't want to take too much time, but apparently the developer who wants to add more freight manufacturing, because the people on Hillside Circle that have highly educated children that left Vermont, they want tech industry. They don't want freight manufacturing that pays $2 or $3 an hour more than McDonald's. And that's what he's putting in, and there'll be more trucks.
Okay, and so this is Essex Town, and the sidewalk doesn't go all the way down Lower Sand Hill to 117.
Not at all. It's
Okay.
very dangerous. I literally had to carry Zoe, my corgi, and I went to the apartments and I put a letter so they'd write to you in one of the 4 apartments. And I feel so bad. It's so inhumane. The letter went right through the door, like they must be living in the cold. It's so inhumane. I just had to share it. It's breaking my heart.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do think there's hope. We've seen folks in our town, again, South Burlington, walking up Allen Road, and we've done scoping for sidewalks. And I think we've addressed that, or beginning to address that, as we get to make a connection from Route 7 equal to 117 there in Essex up to our Dorset Street, which would be.
Well, thank you for listening, because I didn't know what to say. I was afraid to knock because they don't speak English and I don't speak Nepalian. So I need help.
Nepalese.
I don't know how to reach them. Yes, I don't know how to reach them. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I hope we can help. All right. Thank you. Anyone else with a public comment? All right, we're going to move on to agenda item 4, the fiscal year 2026 UPWP, or Unified Planning Work Program, public forum. What I'll need is a motion to open the public forum.
I motion we open to public forum.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you.
And a second for that.
Second.
Thank you, Karen Peterson. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Anyone opposed or abstaining, please speak up. Okay, how shall we work this? Charlie, would we'd like to see if there's any members of the public to start us off, or shall we go through the?
Yeah, I think we might have a couple members of the public, but Phil, Tom.
I'm sort of waiting for Deb to come and do a presentation.
Oh,
Okay,
okay. And Tom Darenthal?
Yeah, I'm just here to observe.
Okay, great, thank you. Then I don't see any other members of the public who haven't otherwise spoken. Did I miss someone? No.
so shall we go over any of this or leave it open until Phil hollers at us and tells us that Deb is ready?
Yeah, maybe you want to go through the 25 mid-year and then we can close, see if anybody else shows up in the next few minutes. And
Okay.
we'll close it after that, maybe.
That work for you, Phil?
Sure.
Okay, great. And Phil, just bring us up to speed. You're representing who, where?
Oh, who, where? No, I'm representing myself, but I work with Deb and Stu and Peggy at Net Zero Vermont Walk to Shop.
Thank you. All right, so we'll take a quick peek ahead at fiscal year 2025 mid-year UPWP and budget adjustment.
Yeah, thank you. So you got two separate attachments were sent to you. One is the Unified Planning Work Program, kind of large, very small print work program with a lot of rows in it. Just I'm gonna open that for myself for a second, but there are some changes. So this is a mid-year adjustment of our work program. And so there's some changes in that document. And I'll just generally talk about the color coding of the changes. And then if anybody has any specific projects they want us to go into more detail, please let me know. As I'm just scrolling through the document, I'm seeing there's a pink row. That was a project we thought was going to get funded back in April that did not come to fruition. So that's kind of a deletion of a task. And then there's light blue tasks that are additions. So those are things on the land use side or the non-transportation side that got funding some point over the last 6 months and that we're adding to the work program. And similarly on the transportation side, there are some light green tasks, which are new transportation tasks being added to the program. And there also are some places, some projects that have maybe green shading in the dollar amount. And that is typically indicating an increase in dollars for that project. If there's a yellow shading, that was a change in the dollar amount, which probably meant that it went down. And what else? I think that's the color key. Does anybody want to ask any questions, any more specific questions about any specific projects? I'm looking at Eleni a little bit to see if there's anything we want to call out in particular. I guess there is some bright yellow shading also. That is an indication that we are following some guidance from US DOT that those projects do not have to have state or local match work with those. And so they are kind of 100% federal funded because they are complete street safety oriented type projects. And so anyway, if you see bright yellow in there, that's what the bright yellow is, just kind of flagging that those are 100% federally funded dollar amounts. Yeah. Eleni was, oh, sorry, Chris.
An example of that might be, what is it? The Regional Safety Action Plan. I can't tell which page, page 24.
Yeah,
okay.
Correct.
Correct.
Right.
We have 5 projects that they are basically exempt from. We have 100% federal funding for those 5 projects because they are either addressing safety or complete streets. And those are the ones that you're going to see in the bright yellow.
And the 2.5% represents, they're tagged with that. What does that represent?
I'm sorry, Chris, what was that?
The yellow ones are coded 2.5% safety / waiver.
So
That's...
when we started doing that, the guidance we got from Federal Highway said that 2.5% of our budget had to be complete streets projects with the 0% match. And so, sorry, that's, we'll update that little bit
We'll
of
correct that, yeah,
terminology,
because.
yeah.
Mhm.
That was a little holdover language. Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm not following where you guys are because there's like there's 5A and 5B, then there's the information that's in the packet. What are you guys, what specific document are you looking at?
5B, the UPWP document.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that, Joe.
Oh, it's okay.
And partly that I'm asking this question because this is very long and there's a lot of detail in here. So there have been years where we have kind of gone a little bit more row by row and dealt with changes. I'm happy to do that if folks want to. And then there's been other years where people have been like, okay, looks okay. We don't need to dive into detail. So yeah, if folks want to me to go in more detail, I'm happy to do that.
Well, I think Patty might want you to go into detail. Her hand
No,
is
I
up.
just have one quick question, and then I'll stop. I just, the UPWP that was approved last May 2024 for Essex Town for Sand Hill Road, I wondered what color you were, yellow? Are we doing a complete street or have you even started? Because we were granted, I'll tell you the exact amount, 64,000, so 50,000 is what CCRPC put in, and we put in, I think, 10, the town of Essex. So somehow it came out to 64. I'm looking at the chart, but I don't know.
Patty, the project just started. We actually hired a consultant and we developed the scope of work and a budget. And we are about to launch that project. So you're going to be hearing more about it in the next few weeks.
Oh, thank you very much.
And if you want to track it on this document, sorry, it took me a minute to find it. It's row 64 on the spreadsheet. Lower Sand Hill Road traffic study.
What color are we?
Oh, it's white because it was in May.
Okay, but I would love us to be a complete street. So, thank you so much for telling me.
Yeah, we'll see. that one did not get on the list for approval by Federal Highway. So for that complete streets, but but Patty, you bring up a point or remind me of a point, which is for those 5 projects, I think 3 or 4 of them are municipal projects. So the municipality will have some cost savings by not having to provide the local match for those projects. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So if there are no questions on the detailed tasks, I was going to turn to the budget. Folks okay with that?
And sure, and that would be the 2-pager.
Yeah. And so now I'm looking at the budget. Let me know, do people want me to share this while I'm scrolling through? Yes, okay. Hold on one sec. Can folks see the budget? Yes, okay. And is it big enough? I'm hoping it is because it's filling my screen. Okay. Thank you for that feedback. So those of you that have been here for a while, there's a little bit of a familiar routine, but the first section of this, the budget is the municipal regional section of our revenue. The first page here is all our revenue sources. Column D here is what was adopted in May. And then column F is kind of the updated numbers for all of this. As best we know here at the turn of the calendar year. So there was more money. You can see like $95,000 more money for regional planning. Now, I'll just kind of cover some of the bigger changes. These are some of the blue new projects on the non-transportation side. Some funding from DHC, the Department of Housing and Community Development, to work with towns on neighborhood development area. A contract with Shelburne. And some municipal zoning administrator services. Brad, if you're aware, this is our budgeting of that potential shared ZA position. Sorry, this is a conversation we've been having with Underhill and a couple other towns about maybe us hiring a zoning administrator that can serve one or more towns. Sorry, Brad, did you want to say something there?
Well, I was just looking at the number. Is that,
It's because it's partial of this fiscal year.
okay, okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
understand. Now, I get it. It's a little low, but that's okay.
Yeah,
I get
right.
it. I get it now. Yes.
To fill everybody else in on the joke, you know, they're paying 70 and this is only showing 37, but
Right.
yeah, so this is just taking us through June. Or 36,000, I'm sorry. Other significant change is the communications union district line here on 17 and 18. I think last spring, we thought there was a significant likelihood that that work may end, and so we zeroed it out. That did not happen. As a matter of fact, not only did it not end, they got a $2.1 million grant from the state to fund expansion of fiber with Consolidated Communications. And so this 630,000 is kind of our best round estimate of what might flow through us to Consolidated Communications to expand broadband in the next few months. Any questions on this section? Okay. Transportation. This is the shortest section, but the biggest dollar amount. So a couple different dynamics here. When you can see the staff funding is going down by about $94,000. And that is nothing too bad, but kind of showing the result of a little baby boom we're having in the office, and some folks taking time off for that. Primarily that, and some other changes in work hours, nothing too significant. And then a little bit of an increase, $81,000 on the consultant line, row 25. So that is kind of reflecting some of those new transportation projects that got added. Any questions on the transportation budget or portion of the revenue? Okay. Natural resources and energy, just kind of right sizing the brownfields money. This climate resiliency toolkit is one of those projects that we thought was going to get funded, did not get funded. So that's out, but fairly small dollars. Most of these they're separate contracts, but fairly small dollars, you know, kind of up and down. And you can see again, some more blue tasks here, water quality projects that have come under contract this fiscal year so far. And then row 54 is one I'll call out. This is something new. DEC provided $6 or $7 million to the bond bank to work with the rural fire districts on their water systems. And the bond bank has contracted with the RPCs to do some outreach to those fire district boards, and kind of partly it's going to be a needs assessment, finding out what kind of needs they have, and we'll see where that goes. But it's just an interesting new area of service for us to get into, to get in touch with those fire districts. If any of you have fire districts in your town that you think we should really reach out to, that might be looking for some help, either technical or administrative, please let us know, because we'll be reaching out sometime. I'm not sure we're totally under contract yet, but sometime in the next few months we'll be reaching out on that. Any questions or thoughts on that one or on that section? And then the last section, emergency management and health, the hazard mitigation grant program. The state provided us about $10,000 to help towns do hazard mitigation grant applications. So if you have a project, I think we've asked a couple times and are helping whoever responded. But if you are worried that your town does need help and hasn't asked us, this is a fair warning to ask us for help. Any questions on that little section? All right, and so to get to the bottom line here, so you can see our operating budget is about 3.5 million. This is row 65, and row 66 at least in the budget, the amount that could theoretically pass through us to consultants or other RPCs or maybe to towns, about 7 million. And just to put a little caveat on that, our budget in FY24, I think was closer to like maybe 9 million instead of 10.5. But probably only like 6.5 million actually did come through us. So I just want to say that because the 7 million is, I guess, the most optimistic version of how much money might pass through us, but also highly unlikely to actually occur at that level. Anybody, any feedback, question, comment on that? Okay. And then
have we hit 10 million before?
No. This
So
is the
we should
first
be
time.
shooting off fireworks. Okay.
Well, again,
or girding ourselves for when it dips down.
Well, but also it's not, I know it's not really going to be 10 million at the end of the year. It's going to be 7, maybe
7, right?
Jeff?
Charlie, has the extended period of time off affected our throughput, or are we going to have to hire more consultants, or what level? You said you called it a boom, so that obviously raised the issue of are we going to have to hire somebody temporarily to get our throughput through, or what?
So far we are, I guess we've done a little bit of that. Ann Nelson is having a baby next month. And so we brought on somebody to kind of help fill that role as more of a part-time basis. And so in that case, yes. The other cases, not so much, Jeff. We've been able to kind of manage through with the existing staff. Or like Marshall has been taking some leave, but he's working, I think, 2 days a week. So it's not 100% leave. Mm-hmm. So we've been able to kind of cobble along for those, couple, 2-3 months.
Okay.
Did you want to add any more flavor to that?
No, I just other staff stepped in, Jeff, and we're helping each other. So we don't need to hire anybody else on the transportation side.
I don't expect anything other than that, Eleni. I just don't want to get to the point where we burn out staff doing it.
Well, that is definitely a conversation we will have as we're putting together the FY26 work program, Jeff.
Okay.
Because that is some conversation of workload issues and stress that is happening in the organization. And just for those of you that haven't been on the board too long, pre-COVID, our budget was closer to 4 or 5 million. So this is almost a doubling of our budget over the last 5 years. So it is definitely causing some organizational stress. We've done some hiring to address it, but there is some good stress going on. And Patty, did you want to ask something or comment?
I wanted to ask, should there be someone else other than Marshall Distil to send all the many letters from our neighborhood to? Because I don't want to overwhelm him if he's only working 2 days a week. Is there someone else, another email you should give me to send all the letters to? Because
you can send it to me, Patty. You can send it to me.
What's your email?
I can send you my email. I have your email. I will send it to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Because I didn't know he only worked 2 days a week. He's going to get a lot of letters. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
So I'll move over to the expense side of the budget. The direct project expenses, so that money that flows through us, is here at the top. And then our real operating budget, you can see the salary number, salary and benefits, taken together, are getting close to 3 million. So there's about, another 500,000 of other expenses, including rent is probably the biggest one. And most of those we're not changing. We had a little bit more money on internal consultants. Jeff, I think that's partly kind of related to the stress the organization's under. We're spending a little bit more money there on the HR and organizational development work. But other than that, pretty much keeping things the same. I do want to, one quirky thing is our benefits actually going down, which looks a little odd. Some of that is us budgeting conservatively at the beginning of the year. Not being sure if people may take, full family health benefits or two-person or single. And also the fact that we are kind of self-insured with our health insurance. We are not, it has buffered us from the high increases that have been going on in the marketplace in health insurance. So that's how we've been able to keep that fairly flat. And I should add, the significant thing in the salary increase is really the one significant thing beyond those family leave things is adding another person to our business office. So one of the specific strains we're addressing is just this amount of money flowing through us is more than our business office can fully keep up with. So we've added another person. Her name is Kim Smith, and she starts on the 27th, so less than 2 weeks from now. So Chris, hopefully next month we'll have her on the agenda to introduce herself to the board. And bottom line, the expenses are just a little bit less than our revenue. So we have a net excess revenue over expenses of about $3,000 at the bottom line. My only note about that is that we have generally been beating our budgets. We've been, again, trying to budget conservatively so that we end up in a more positive state than we budgeted for at the end. I'll say that. We have had a little bit more capital with some furniture this year of $7,500. And then over on the right, there are two pieces of kind of related information. One is our indirect rate. And you can see this year, for a variety of factors, including the ones I've already mentioned, we're looking at a higher indirect rate now. We'll see how transitory this is and where we really end up. But as Forrest said, we're going through this. This is where we ended up. And VTrans, we did submit that and get that approved by VTrans in the last couple of weeks. And finally, just cash balances. So just so you know where we are cash wise is down at the bottom right, over 500, almost 560 something thousand in our checking. And then we have a money market account that we kind of call as our reserve account. It's just gotten over 500,000 based on how we did last fiscal year. And also note that try to have 3 months of operating in that reserve has been kind of a goal. And we have 500 and it could be 750. We try to get to our goal. Abel, I see your question. What the heck is the indirect rate? So if I'm going to do my best, and then Forrest may have to fix me, or Matthew or somebody. But so the indirect rate is a process that we go through that is compliant with federal regulations. So the federal government basically set up a system so that organizations can recover their full costs as they bill the government. And so it essentially allows us to say, here's our direct salary, here are the direct benefits, but then there's time that we spend like on our board meetings that is not billable to any specific project. So that's indirect time, as well as our rent and other expenses that you saw on the expense budget. Those are all indirect costs. Sorry, I'll just talk more directly to you. And so there's basically a formula calculation that we go through. We have an MOU with VTrans. VTrans is the agency that reviews our indirect rate proposals and approves them. And so anyways, but bottom line, it's just a way for us to recover our costs. And we kind of operate like a consulting agency. So we only get paid for hours that we work on a project. Every project or grant that is on that revenue page is basically a performance contract that says, if you do this for this many hours and this many dollars, we'll pay you. So every hour is billed, and this is the way we recover our costs.
The way I look at it, Charlie, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, and Jeff will certainly do that. Is in short, I think of it as overhead, in effect.
Yeah, we
Because you
try
talk
not
about the
to
building
use,
and you talk. You
overhead
don't let-
has a
yeah.
different meaning.
In the profit world, yes. I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, and so we
It's administrative. It's our it's our administrative costs when we're not working on a project that need to
Right.
be.
Exactly. The downtime, that might be a better term.
So for other board members, just think about having to sit down at the beginning of your year and figure out how much time you're going to spend on that. Then track it. And because we get reimbursed for it, and not surprisingly, it's hard to hit it exactly. So that's why some years we went through overs and some years we went through unders. And sometimes the excess of expenses, of revenues over expenses became an excess of expenses over revenues. And so we had negative numbers. And, this is our mid-year budget adjustment, and it has not always been this way for the new members.
Yeah,
And
interestingly,
where
Jeff, to that point, yeah, you can see the last 5 years of kind of not just indirect rates, but also our year-end audited results on the bottom right there. Sorry, I'll share that again now that I started talking about it again. And Jeff, to your point, I just took off FY19. That was a year that our expenses exceeded our revenues. So we had a negative, year end. But the last 5 years, you can see we're almost 350,000 to the good over those 5 years.
And we've had a goal for those 5 years to try to get our bank balance in our money market account up to 3 months of expenses, because it doesn't take a big miss here and then some negative developments, and we've got to make sure we can cover our payroll and our benefits and pay the rent and keep the lights on.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a this is the insurance account to protect the towns. So if God forbid, I'm sorry, all the staff close your ears. If God forbid we got put out of business, July 1, this is the account that kind of makes sure we can close up shop and do what we need and make sure there's no liability accruing to the towns. So at least that's the way I've been thinking about our reserve account. It's really to protect the towns. Any other questions on the budget or anything else you're seeing here?
If not, then
I would move approval of the mid-year budget, Mr. Chair.
okay. And my question to Charlie would be: we have the mid-year budget adjustment, then we also have the mid-year UPWP. Is those two separate votes, Charlie?
No, they can be voted on together, but we do need two separate votes because our bylaws say we need to vote on this as an MPO action and as an RPC action. So just to remind everyone, MPO action, only the municipalities except Buell's Gore and VTrans vote on MPO business. For RPC business, everybody can vote.
All right. So you made the motion for the budget, Jeff?
Second.
Thank you, Andy.
Did that include the UPWP?
Since we have the MPO versus RPC, this is an MPO item, is it not? No, this is an RPC item. Is that correct?
They're both.
They're both.
Okay. So I would move the budget adjustment for both the CCMPO and the RPC portion of the mid-year budget adjustment. Sorry.
And this, thank you.
And that was my second.
Thank you, Andy.
Let's say, do we need to close out the?
We're gonna circle back to Phil in a second.
We're holding that open, Catherine, because we don't know if other members of the public are going to show up.
Oh, I was going to say, I was wondering when you close that, because you're voting on closing it, and what it is, and what if they changed it or something?
Good point. But that we're dealing with 25 and this is 26.
UPWP, not the 25 budget adjustment.
Okay, that's an adjustment. Sorry, I was just checking.
Excuse me? Excuse me?
Yes, go ahead.
Chris, sorry, Ben Bornstein here from Westford. For whatever reason, my system crashed. I don't know if it's your end or mine, but now back. So if you could just restate the question, I appreciate it, just to make sure I'm absolutely clear as to what we're voting on. Thank you.
Sure. Jeff had moved the mid-year UPWP and budget adjustment. And I was getting clarification from Charlie that this would be both an MPO and RPC vote. Is that correct, Charlie?
Right.
Okay, so that
And the-
not only the
and-
municipalities, but our board, all the board members would have a vote on
And the full amount of the things we assigned to Ben when he wasn't on here to fight them?
it. Yeah, mine crashed and bombed me out too, but I got back in. So with this item for fiscal
you.
year 2025, then we're going to move to Phil and take a look at next year, fiscal 2026. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye, raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed or abstaining, please speak up. Great. All right, so we are going to circle back and see if Phil is ready to opine on the fiscal year 2026 UPWP public forum. Is Deb shown and Stu shown, Phil?
Oh, sorry about that. I haven't seen Deb. I don't have a good sense of the list here, but I'm
Of our
hoping she's
agenda?
showing.
Or
Yeah.
Uh,
And Phil, and maybe, was that something that you talked to Deb about coming to the first UPWP committee in a couple weeks?
Oh,
Is that
no,
possible?
we had an email to the discussion that she was going to present tonight. But I could be wrong.
I do think she's on the first meeting of the UPWP committee to present in, I think that's, I don't know if it's the 28th or something like that. It's somewhere at the last week of January.
Okay, my bad. Well,
No problem.
anyway, nice listening to this meeting, and if I can put 2 cents in,
Yeah.
please do.
the more only 2. The first cent is I really appreciate the comments made for pedestrians and sidewalks. The second comment adjacent to that is the more money you can put into sidewalks and bike paths, the more we can get people walking, the more we can bring down our costs for gasoline, crashes, roads, car dependence, etc. Not to mention what we can do for the environment. So that were my 2 cents.
Well,
Thank you, Phil. And Marshall commented or let me know the meeting's actually Monday, the 27th, Phil. Just to
Got
make
it.
sure you get that on your radar. Good. Excellent.
Well, I jumped the gun.
Hey, better early than
Thank you
late.
very much.
Well, you're
I
on
can
record.
totally-
And, yeah, and thank you, Phil. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
well, thank you all. And now I can go eat dinner. Oh,
Very
wow.
good.
All right.
I'm going to ask for any other comments from the public on the public forum for the fiscal year 2026 UPWP process. Hearing or seeing none, I would accept a motion to close the public
I move
hearing.
to close the public hearing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jeff. A second on that?
I'll
Any-
second. Christine
sorry,
Winooski.
Christine, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, abstaining, please speak up. Well, thank you. We're going to move on to item 6, the Minor Transportation Improvement Program amendments. TIP, it's on page 8 of your packet. Agenda item 6, electrical vehicle charging site at the University Mall. We've been recommended by Christine to approve the proposed TIP amendment. Do you have anything to offer on that, Christine?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I'll just say that this is a federal program to add charging infrastructure at major interstate and state corridors. The state's going to get about $21 million out of this program. There is a plan, electric vehicle, I forgot the exact name of it, NEVI plan that the state has been developed, and this is one of the sites that has been identified. And yeah, so.
There'll be better parking there than during the eclipse back in April.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the minor TIP amendment.
Thank you, Jeff. Second? Anyone? I see, I'll take Chuck Wilton there. Thank you, Chuck. Further discussion?
This is MPO action.
MPO, thank you. You're right. I did not check on that. So some of you folks will have to sit out if you aren't representing a municipality there. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining, please speak up. All right, let's move on to another item in your packet, agenda item 7. You've been sent the draft board and committee member handbook and code of conduct. Both are included in a 11-page document. And who will take the lead on this one?
I can take this, Chris.
Thank you, Ann Nelson.
Yeah, Emma and I can tag team this. Let me share my screen, if that's helpful. Sorry, I'm just transitioning from note taking to this. So Emma sent this out in advance of this meeting. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So to give you some background, and I know this was in the memo as well, but we have had a board member handbook for CCRPC board members for a long time. It hasn't been updated in many years. So in light of a new CCRPC staff code of conduct, we decided it was time to update the board and committee member handbook and kind of include some code of conduct related content in this handbook. So if it's helpful, and depending on how in-depth folks have already looked through this, we can walk through it together and then see if you all have any comments. This is a draft version, so we welcome any feedback you may have. I'm gonna walk through it quickly. Just cut me off if you have comments or questions that come up along the way.
And I'm going to remind everybody we were sent this in advance of a little homework. So hopefully those of you have read through it and have highlighted any areas that may be of concern or that you feel need to be expanded. Okay, thank you.
So we have a brief introduction and welcome to CCRPC, an overview of CCRPC. This is all content that was in the previous handbook. We have our core values, vision, mission, and equity commitment. You've seen all of these pieces. Just a note that the vision and mission are still in the process of being updated. So there's a note there. They're not final.
Excuse me. I noticed, I wrote a note that I didn't pull out the page to say where it was exactly, but under equity commitment, because I've noticed you've been trying to do the community as opposed to the equity advisory committee. Under equity committee, under equity commitment, you still have equity advisory committee on the next to the last line, if you want to change that.
Thank you. That's a great point. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what Catherine's referring to, we're changing the name of the Equity Advisory Committee to the Community Engagement Advisory Committee. So we just need to make that update here. Thanks, Catherine. We then have a section about the organization structure. So we go over our board of directors representation and other representatives on the board. An organization chart and committee representation. So what committees does CCRPC have? And we link to an organization chart that Emma has created that lives on our website. Our enabling legislation. And then we have a section about board and committee member expectations. So brief overview, introduction to the role. And then we've tried to organize to the best of our ability board member roles and responsibilities. There were like 3 or 4 lists in the previous board handbook and they were a bit disorganized. So we've tried to streamline it to provide as much clarity and detail as possible, but also keep it brief. So I won't read through these, but if you have any additions or if there's anything that stands out to you that we're missing or that we could improve in this list based on your experience on the board, that would be great. A little call out graphic we'll have about time commitment. So again, this is draft. We'll eventually pull this into a final graphic version. So that's these call out graphics are just signaling where we're going to have a little call out box. And then we get into a section about code of conduct. So kind of basic behavioral expectations that we have for board and committee members. And we have this list of group expectations. This list has been drafted with collaboration from the Community Engagement Advisory Committee and CCRPC staff members and the executive committee. So it's gone through a couple iterations and we've gotten to this list of 9 kind of general group expectations for behavior during meetings. You can see there's everything from be present and ready to actively participate to using accessible language, having fun, listen generously. We have a section about public meeting expectations and the open meeting law, meeting attendance and preparedness, communication with local legislative bodies and other partners, conflict of interest, a little section on political activity, harassment and discrimination. And then this last section about just implementation pieces of this code of conduct. So how are we going to implement this handbook and these expectations? First being when you join the board or a committee, you'll be asked to sign an acknowledgement of your receipt and review. There will be some form of onboarding and orientation. I know that's already been happening, I think, for new board members. To review this, you'll have a chance to ask questions. Cultivating, generally speaking, a culture of regular feedback so we can all learn. Education and training that occasionally may come the board's way or committees. And then this section on conflict resolution is really informed by our updated staff code of conduct that integrates a more restorative approach to conflict resolution into the personnel policy for staff. So we're trying to do the same for board and committee members and get clearer on if and when there's conflict that comes up in board or committee meetings, how do we work through that? How do we navigate that? So there's a section on reporting and documentation. So who do you report to? Who do you reach out to if there's an issue? If you feel like harm has been done in one way or another, and then how we would like to work through a restorative process first before moving to a more kind of punitive or formal process. And that really just looks like having a conversation or a dialogue that's either self-mediated or mediated through the committee leader or CCRPC staff member or board chair. And so this was also informed by the Community Justice Center, and we've partnered with them and are actually having a upcoming training for all staff around this restorative process. And then if and when that doesn't work, there's obviously a more formal process. If the harm is great enough that we can't work through it via dialogue. This is also from our previous code of conduct, then obviously we can either request that certain members receive training or education, they can be asked to leave, so on and so forth. And that's about it. And then we'll have a list of resources here at the bottom. They'll all be linked in the final version, but we've tried to keep this as short as possible so it's not too overwhelming, and then just link to additional kind of core CCRPC resources here at the end.
And what would be our next steps, taking feedback here on this draft tonight, and Nelson?
Yeah, I think gathering any feedback anyone may have, and then Emma and I will finalize this, and that's it. And if nobody has feedback and we feel like it's good to go, then
will it come back to the
Yeah,
board?
we'll bring
go
it
the
back to you.
executive?
Yeah, we'd like to have the board, officially vote on it.
Right.
So yeah, if you're not comfortable voting on it, you know, because there's some language in here, like, please, this is the time to let us know. And so we can, yeah, if there are changes are minor, it could be on next month's agenda for action.
Well, that's what I'm asking, whether it's going to come back through the executive committee or whether it's going to come back directly to the board.
Oh, no, the exec committee will review it.
And then it'll come to the board. Okay. And then the resources, public participation and glossary at the end, are we going to unpack all our acronyms in the glossary, Ann Nelson, or and what will the public participation resource, how will that weigh in on this? Where, you know, one of my concerns with our code of conduct is when we have public participation and we have people who step out of line as the public, you know, wherein lies our responsibility, and how do we, use our norms to try and constrain that if it needs to be constrained. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, it's an area that people are going to be people, but I think, you know, in order for us to follow our code of conduct, we're going to have to address bad behavior in all realms. And does this document help us with that public participation potential pratfall?
Yeah. One, I think that bullet point is supposed to say public participation plan. Emma, correct me if I'm wrong, and link to our actual plan on the website. However,
yeah, I think that's
ahead.
correct. There are some resources within that page, so I think we just kind of mix up the two. But yes, I do think that's going to link to our main public participation plan hub on the website.
Yeah. But Chris, to your point, the piece of this that in my mind will hopefully help set expectations for behavior from members of the public is also that list of group expectations. So I would really appreciate if anybody has thoughts on those expectations, given you all's experience in public meetings, both as a part of this board and in your own work. I think it can be really helpful to share this list at the beginning of meetings to kind of set the expectation, and it gives us, board members and members of the public, the ability to kind of go back and check in about these if we feel like somebody is crossing a boundary or not respecting them.
Nice job. It's really thorough.
Thanks, Dana.
And Nelson, this is Bard and everybody. So I have a couple of comments about mitigating or controlling the behavior of others. First, it's a truth of behavioral supports and behavioral management that it's easier to control your own behavior than the behavior of others. So that's just a dictum that is obvious and logically true. The other thing is a practical matter. My experience is often falls on the chair to a certain control and things like please direct your comments to the chair. When things have gone not as well as I might have hoped, it's often when the chair, him or herself, escalates, and then you get this escalating pattern between a member of the public and the chair. So my experience, for what it's worth, a lot of it hinges on the chair's demeanor and approach, and essentially de-escalation strategies at times, because you can't fully control the behavior of the public. I will note that there have been, I think, 2 examples of meetings of this organization that have been, what would I say, Zoom bombed by members of the public. And that is perhaps the ultimate recourse, that if it's somebody not in the room, that whoever's managing that in real time disconnects that person. I don't know if those comments are helpful at all.
And I think as I'm listening to the conversation, yeah, we'll maybe add a little bit more language about the conduct of people attending our meetings, and the role of the chair in managing that. Was that Nelson? I'm not. Yeah, good. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense, Charlie. We can definitely add that. I will note that's not currently really in there, so that makes sense. And thanks, Bard, for your comments as well.
Very good. And so
Yeah, it's
if
helpful.
anyone doesn't have immediate further feedback for Ann Nelson, perhaps we can email you before you step off in the new year to your new challenges.
Yeah,
Um,
please email, call. I can pop my email in the chat for anyone who doesn't already have it, but
Very
we
good. And we
would
want to
welcome
get on
any
to
feedback.
Christine.
Thanks. I just wanted to give you some kudos here. I think the plain language and overview of what it's like to serve is really helpful, and it's given me some ideas for orientation for the board that I chair. And then wanted to second Bard's comments. I think it really, when it comes to managing public engagement, if it's getting out of control, it really does. It's the board chair that really has extra responsibilities on that, and that's where I would also focus, providing guidance and support.
Yeah, I could have used you when they were calling for my arrest and calling me a capitalist pig on various times in my past. Jeff, go ahead.
I just want to go back to a statement, Ann Nelson, that I made early on. And I realize that I'm an old curmudgeon these days, and we've become much more tribal in the way that we approach things. But I understand the need to deal with public misbehavior on the part of people that aren't part of our organization. But I'm going to just say that I've only been a part of this organization for almost a quarter of a century, and I can't remember a time when a member of the board was disrespectful or would require the death penalty that this document has. We're all volunteers in this organization because we love this organization. And so when I read the part of it that talks about the death penalty, make a recommendation to the appointing municipal body to remove the member, it rubs me the wrong way. I don't think there's anybody who's on this board that would intentionally be disrespectful to anyone, would purposely make someone feel uncomfortable. So with death penalty language in here, it just rubs me the wrong way. I'd much rather have it say, refer to the CCRPC employee handbook for, mitigation or something like that. I think I know that, like I said, I'm a dinosaur and we live in a different world than we did 5 years ago, but it bothers me.
And
I
Jeff,
think
could you point to the specific language you talked about, the second
death
bullet
penalty
point from the
language,
bottom?
where if you can't
Second bullet
resolve,
point from the bottom, notify the appointing authority.
yeah, if you can't resolve a conflict, and we're trying to moderate or ameliorate what should be common decency and human interaction. And if we've come to that point, okay, but it's not a world that I recognize. Especially with this organization. This is one of the finest organizations I think that's out there. That's why I've invested a quarter of a century of my life in it. And I don't think anybody would be intentionally disrespectful to anyone. And if someone pointed it out to someone they were being disrespectful, I think they would be horrified by it. But I realize it's a new world, it's a tribal world, and I'm probably full of crap. But I just want to say that.
Jeff, no, but I'll take some of the blame for this, and maybe it's listening. And I appreciate all your comments about CCRPC, and really from the heart, I appreciate those. Some of this is me listening to horror stories that have happened at other RPCs, and where things did get out of hand, and the executive committee got confronted with how the heck do we handle it, and they didn't have anything in writing about how to handle it, and they actually got to that point. I hate to say. So, oh, you're muted, Jeff.
I'm not saying don't handle it. I'm saying point to a process in the employee handbook or
Someplace
something.
else. Yeah.
It communicates something.
Yeah.
That we have to have that.
Yeah, right. Or more, maybe it's communicating more.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's all that I'm saying. It's not that I don't realize that we need to have a process. It's not that I don't realize. It's just I look at all the people that have walked through our door and represented municipalities and certain interests. And honestly, if I'm wrong, correct me. I can't remember a time that I thought, well, that was out of line in 25 years. And maybe going ahead, it's going to be a different world. Like I said, maybe I'm a romantic, but I haven't seen anybody that's graced our tables or our screens that has ever engaged in a level of disrespect that would compel this organization to go to the municipal appointing body and tell them to get rid of them.
Agreed.
I think
I'll
we
just
can
say,
do that with a reference. That's all that I'm saying.
I've only been here for 20 years, and I concur with what Jeff was just saying about the folks who serve on the RPC. I've never experienced anything, either that would raise that issue.
There's been a stink eye or two over the course of the years, but nothing that I would say rises to the level where one of our board members, we would even think about talking to the appointing municipal body to say, we don't want this person on our board.
Well, you brought up a point, and I think you hit a few nerves between Bruce and Patty. Let me go with Bruce first as a board member, and then Patty, we'll get to your comment. Bruce, go ahead.
Well, I'm unmuted. Yes. So one thing that I like what Ann Nelson did was she she went and spoke with Rachel Jolly from the Burlington Community Justice Center. And then one thing, and when we was planning to do this, we talked about restorative justice. And so restorative justice means it's like what it does is it gives the person the penalty, or if you want to call it penalty or punishment, what they deserve. It's not like, get the hell out of here, excuse my language, whatever. It's about what, and then the community, the restorative justice panels or the board members or whoever make the decisions on what should happen. So it's not like, Jeff, I'm not hitting on you, but because I understand what you're saying, I think what Ann Nelson have done with work with Rachel Jolly from the director of Burlington Community Justice Center is find out what does restorative justice really mean. What does a penalty means? What does that mean? What does that mean when somebody, so in theory, violate other person's employees' rights or whoever it is? And how do we deal with it? And then so it go to like a restorative justice process. So I just want to make sure that we all look at that, read that part of what Ann Nelson worked so hard for, and continue to work with the Burlington Community Justice Center to help us get better. And so, and you got ideas and suggestions on what restorative justice mean. We can implement that too. Just put your words in what it means. And so I want everybody to just, okay, restorative justice. We're just not going to fire that person because we want to or they should. We want to know what is the restorative justice practices. And so they talk to Ann Nelson and talk to she's did so much work on this. But that's all I want to say about that. Thank you.
And I think capture it perhaps is a lot softer language in that second bullet point from the bottom in the formal process that I think you're objecting to, Jeff, or it hits you in a certain way, that it's dire from your perspective. But I think that language is softer than what
I'm not objecting. I know.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. I know how you're saying it feels and it strikes you.
It just says that's not the culture of the organization that I've made a part of my life for 25 years.
And I agree. And that's why the language is.
I'm not finding fault with the fact that it's there. I realize we live in a world like this.
I don't see it as dire. I don't see it as dire and direct as you pronounced it to be. But let me ask, we'll talk. Can I take another comment
on this, Mr. Chair? You and I have disagreed on things before, but I don't think we need to go through a restorative justice process. We have a very lively discussions, and they are for the benefit and the good of the organization.
And in deference to our lawyer, Andy Montreal, I want to be able to have something, at least from my perspective, that we can have on record as this is the procedure, as opposed to going, well, let's just make something up based on.
That's why I said, in the instance where this has become an issue, and I hope it never does, refer to the employee manual where there's a restorative process. I'm not saying not have a restorative process. I'm saying when you put this language in your document, you are saying you are concerned about people being disrespectful.
Okay.
I understand that things could be more emotionally charged in an employment situation. This is a volunteer organization. We are all here because we care about our communities, we care about the region, and we care about this organization. We are not employees, but we can utilize the employee restorative process if someone crosses a line, by the way, that I've yet to observe myself, like I said, in 25 years. That was my only point.
And we'll kick it to Emma and Nelson and see if they can take it from second degree of separation to a third degree of separation by the method you just described.
I'm everybody's nightmare. I'm an old guy with an opinion.
That sounds good. Patty, I'm sorry to hold you off there for the moment.
Oh, no,
please
no
weigh
worries.
in.
I'm absolutely enjoying this meeting. And I wanted to say that what you all do very right is you listen. And I really want you to know, as a public member, how much that means to me and how important it is that you listen. And what you're doing is wonderful as an organization. Secondly, Jeff Carr was a neighbor of mine, a couple circles down. His wife and I were friends, and he's a great guy, by the way. So you have a good person on your team. And Dana, who lives in Charlotte, I asked her to come spend the night if she's ever stuck in Essex when she was working with us. Is awesome from Charlotte. So
Thank
you have a great team. So I wanted to say that I was on the planning commission for the town of Essex, and Dana, you inspired me and I went for it and I learned a lot. But I wanted to say that I believe, this is just my opinion, because I've been on boards on running committees, maybe the planning commission, all sorts of things over my lifetime. I'm almost 64 years old, so I'm an old fart. But I believe that this is a suggestion that maybe you guys as a team could suggest at some point a diversity and equity commission for the towns that you represent. In other words, the 11 towns you all represent, you could suggest to each individual town that they have a diversity and equity commission. I can't speak the language, like I said, of Napoleon, but I feel that I am not equipped as a 64-year-old that I feel is very worldly and very educated to relate. And I'm not a planning commission member anymore. I left because the person that was our planning commission chair was chair for 24 years, and I didn't believe that was right. But I didn't tell him personally. But Jeff Carr is wonderful, and everybody on this team is wonderful, and I really appreciate you listening to me. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Patty, for your vote of confidence. And I think there are discussions that Charlie has started with the city managers, and Nelson might be able to speak to it as well, that in the same way that we have the zoning administrators for was that Underhill, where you had pitched an idea on the similar size for our community engagement. Is that correct, Charlie?
Yeah, some of the towns are talking about having some sort of equity policy advisor. So that's a kind of ongoing conversation and part of the budget conversation for multiple municipalities. But yeah, thank you, Patty and Jeff, for your opinions. And one thought, and partly, Jeff, I want to make sure I'm kind of really understanding that in a way, reading this, if you were a new board member and you read some of this, you'd be like, oh man, that's a screwed up board, that they have to have this kind of stuff in their initial handbook. Like, here's the initial guidance. to become a board member, and half of it is about dealing with conflict.
Could be. I'm thinking more along the lines of saving a tree and saying we don't necessarily have to have mirror language with the employee handbook.
Right.
We can refer to that resolution process that's outlined there already.
Yep.
So that we're not advertising that we have a conflict resolution process.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Actually, when I applied for this job a long time ago now, and I was about to start the interview process.
Remember, I was on the search committee for you from the MPO.
You don't have to take the blame right now, but one of the things that almost made me not want to take it was looking at the strategic planning document for the organization, which had a lot of focus on this kind of language. And I hadn't really thought about it until you just said it, Jeff. And I was like, oh man, what is going on at that organization that they have so much focus on these conflicting things? I can't remember exactly what it was. It wasn't exactly this, but it was, I clearly got the sense that there were some issues going on the board. And it wasn't a great message, and I'm not sure there was any issues going on, but just that document gave me that perception. And that's what I'm hearing you say, Jeff.
And I'm not critiquing the fact that we have a process. I think
the
process. I'm talking about presentation.
Right.
For a volunteer. If it was an employee, I get it 100%.
Yep.
But we're volunteers, you know?
Yep.
We all have ethics and I have another appointment in my town, so I have to take the state ethics training. I have to sign an ethics agreement with my town and everything. Now I got to do it for my other volunteer part of my life. Pretty soon I'm going to say the hell with that and play golf.
There you go.
And to summarize your recommendation, Jeff, you perhaps would be looking for a hyperlink in the document that would take you to
our employee handbook where this is there in very clear, outspoken language. And I know we need a process. I know we need a process because sometime it's going to happen.
Right.
But I just don't, I don't want to present something that has never been a problem in anticipation of a problem. I don't know. Like I said, I'm old school now.
Fair enough. Let's move on. If anyone else has feedback in the moment for Emma or Ann Nelson, if not, they have emails, and Ann Nelson has put hers in the chat. Emma sends you religious emails weekly, if not monthly. You may respond in kind to her with your thoughts. So if you did not get a chance to look at this code of conduct and not employee handbook, but the
board member
and committee member handbook, please do so and give some feedback to Emma and Ann Nelson. Can we move on? All right, thank you. We're going to go to draft bylaws, which has been put together handsomely by Catherine McMains and her crew. Who would like to take the lead on this?
Yeah, Catherine, if you're okay, Catherine, I'll launch in here. All right, looks like she's okay. So sorry, I just jumped ahead. I think this is on page 10. Starts on page 10 of the packet. Please let me know if anybody wants me to share it. I'm gonna kind of scroll through. I'm seeing no shake head, no, don't share. So okay, if anybody needs me to share, please speak up.
A bit of it, Charlie, is just cleaning up language instead of having full CCRPC, Chittenden County Region. We're putting CCRPC in and things like that. We're
right.
I mean, it's except for the creation of the new committee, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, there's a few other things. One, just in the beginning section, and so this is the first time you're seeing this as a board. So this is not up for action tonight. This is kind of digest it a little bit, and we'll bring it back next month or the following month whenever folks are ready to see it back. So I'll kind of touch on some of the highlights. Jeff hit on a couple of them. The first article, we got into a conversation about the mission and vision, and we have a vision mission in our regional plan, and this was like an organizational. Anyway, long story short, thought we would take it out and just have more of a purpose statement in this first section. And so we can have more flexibility with our mission and vision as we evolve, and have that in a separate document and more prominent in our website. And then Jeff's right, there's a lot of just changing this written out Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission to CCRPC. The other significant change is on bottom of page 2. It starts, there's a new section F that starts there that is around our financial abilities. And this is really, we had a limited language there before. And so this is quoting right out of statute exactly what we can do in terms of financial abilities. And this came up as we're submitting an application for a revolving loan fund for brownfields cleanup. This kind of came up, and EPA wanted to make sure this language is actually in our bylaws. So our attorney worked with us on this. And by the way, I should say Andy is an attorney, but he's not our organization's attorney. And he's also a volunteer when he sits here. So, and I'm gonna just scroll real quickly in the document I'm looking at, just other little, mostly cleanup things. And then Jeff mentioned the creation or addition of the Community Engagement Advisory Committee, and that is way down. I don't know where that is. That starts on page. Sorry, I'm not scrolling fast enough.
20.
20, thank you. Thank you to the faster scroller there. Thank you, Miles. So those are the major highlights. Yeah, Bruce.
I also should mention that.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Excuse me. So no, I'm saying, did you want to do? Were you saying something to me, or? Well, so I just want to move. I just want to move forward on my own little tiny Northwestern University brain, and that is that as a person who looks like me, when someone, Jeff, I'm not hitting on you, but you're not the only one who said this, that you want to keep things the same. You know, man, you're old school. And so I started thinking about 300 years of slavery, who people look like me, and that's old school. They believe that that should continue to be like that, and it was for 300 years. You know, so now people who don't want to change, don't want to amend to the following, don't want to, you know, get better in some type of way, you know, will teach their children the old, same old way of doing things. I don't know how many years they're gonna live to 100, and then they're gonna teach their children, their grandkids, same old, same old. And so I'm affected by when I hear that. It bothers me, and so I don't know how we can move forward with that. So, Ann Nelson, you and I have to have some coffee or something, and we need to figure that out, because I'm not, Jeff, don't hit it off, because that's the whole situation. People think that we should just go, things worked all right, you know, in your neck of the woods. I lived on the south side of Chicago, and I was raised. A lot of people. I graduated. I went to Northwestern, so I met a lot of people from in Evanston, and they was like super duper rich. So everything was the same. I won't change nothing. You know what I'm saying? But people south side Chicago, where Henry Horner's, Caprini Greens, and all the projects where my cousins went to, they didn't have an opportunity to go to Northwestern. You know, they wanted to change something. They didn't want to be the same. So, and here we are today, and people using the words diversity, equity, inclusion. That bothers me. I know what diversity means. What does equity mean? Kills me there. What that mean? It's a good buzzword, and saying was inclusion. And I think when we use those words, I've said it more than once in these meetings, that we should really think about what it means before we open our mouths. Instead of like a good high power zillion dollar word. So once again, you know, I'm a little emotional right now, because, you know, people haven't heard about 300 years old. They heard about it, but they don't hear. You haven't really met nobody like people in my family, my grandma, and people who've been in slavery, not for 300 years, of course, but you know, their parents, their ancestors. And then do you think they didn't want to change? They didn't want to change nothing? I think they did. So excuse me. Thank you for letting me say that. I will go
Bruce,
to.
I appreciate it, and that refers back to the employee, I'm sorry, I keep referring employee, but that board member handbook, is that correct? Thank you. All right. Back, thankfully, the process for that is gonna go through the executive board and come back to the board here. So, nobody's making any changes. We're taking input, and your input is noted as well. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it.
I just want to add a few more things that, I mean, that just, they're not as significant, but we did change to how the executive committee is operating in terms of finance committee. It's no longer separate. It's been integrated into the executive committee with one additional board member on the for the finance committee meetings that are part of the executive committee meeting. And the other thing that changed is in the bylaws, there was mentioned the assistant director, which was the MPO side, that is now, it's just managed, because that has also changed how the RPC is working. That was eliminated and changed to top management in terms of the bylaws.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. There's probably a couple, 2 or 3 other more minor changes, but any and I'm sorry, I didn't share the doc and really go line by line, but any other comments or feedback on any changes or questions on changes that you're seeing in the draft bylaws?
And again, how will this process go, Charlie? Will this come back to Catherine's committee on
No, the board development committee, I think, finished their work and recommended it to the executive committee. And so the executive committee has brought it to the board, seeking your feedback. We'll take whatever feedback you have. Executive committee will look at it one more time, I think, and then bring it back to a future board meeting, whether it's February or March, I don't know. But and then I do believe there is a process by which we have to send it to all the municipalities for 30 days to give time for select board, city councils to take a look at it and see if they have any concerns. So just a heads up, this is a little bit longer process to change our bylaws, which is why we don't do it too frequently, but it is good to look at every so often. I think
it's been
the
5 or
last time we
6
looked at
years.
it. Yeah.
Last time we did it was 2017.
Yep.
Even longer.
Yeah. So going on 8 years now. I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand or question or.
We have Patty Davis as a thought, but who can we send feedback to? Yourself, Charlie?
To me.
Baker at ccrpc.org. Okay, Patty, go ahead.
Sorry, that last gentleman gave a really good point. When I walked down to the bottom of Sand Hill Road in Essex, and I went to this complex of Napoleon families, 4 families moved in, I couldn't speak a lick of their language, and I was scared to knock on the door. And he made a very good point, that last gentleman that spoke, that I don't know how you can put this in your bylaws, but I feel as a white Vermont Irish American woman that I don't know how to reach out to my neighbors, and I need your help. And I don't know what you can put in your executive bylaws, but he had a point.
Yeah, Patty. No, and to Bruce's point, and I think Bruce has been part of the change here, right? Like where you can see the organization is evolving a little bit, and what we made reference to on page 20 is the community engagement advisory committee, literally, I think created to do the kinds of things you're talking about, Patty. So I think we hear you.
Thank you.
So if there are further thoughts, as I say, please send it directly to C. Baker, Charlie, and otherwise it's going to come back to the executive board and then come back to the main board, probably after the board and committee member handbook, since you seem to say we might have the board and committee member handbook by next month or so, and this one might be for March on the bylaws. Clear? Any further discussion on the draft bylaws? Okay, let's move on to equity and engagement. And I believe Ann Nelson has left us a one pager. Is that correct, Dan Nelson?
That
There
is
it is.
correct.
Page 33, and you've unpacked some of the acronyms, since you're acronym heavy sometimes. The AALV on engagement and partnerships. I think I asked you about what is AALV?
I know, look, you're catching, I didn't clarify AALV this time. But anyways, these one pagers, I'm trying to simplify this equity update each meeting. So sending you all these bullet points ahead of time that you can look at and see if you have questions or points you want to focus on. AALV, which is mentioned under the engagement and partnership update, stands for the Association of Africans Living in Vermont. Part of the, part of the reason that I don't tend to type that acronym out is because they are no longer the Association of just Africans Living in Vermont, so it kind of gives the wrong impression, and they just call themselves AALV in most situations at this point. But anyways, it's a Burlington-based organization. They work with a lot of new Americans in Burlington and Winooski.
And you were kind enough at the last meeting to send a link for the Land Access and Opportunity Board, the LAOB, which is in the bullet point above it under ECOS and Future Land Use Mapping Update, which we will be hearing a lot more about flu, future land use, not COVID, thankfully, or avian at this point. But this will be the LURB, if I'm getting it correct. Is that Act 181, Charlie?
Correct.
Anyway. Okay, I'm
Yes,
getting these
the
numbers correct. The LURB.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, the
LURB will be
LURB.
doing the flu, if not, and that's the new 5-member board that you've seen publicized that will have a lot of impact on housing across the state and their future of it. They're distinct and separate from a very much smaller LAOB, the Land Access Opportunity Board, which I think was a 3-member something or other that you had sent the link for, but had impact and input on that. So thank you. Questions for Ann Nelson on the one-page update for this? All right. Well, thank you. And what is your schedule, Ann Nelson? Will we see you next month?
I think you'll see me next month. My due date's February 25th, so who knows?
Okay. And then after that, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I may show up here and there. You never know.
Yeah, I know. It's an interesting times. Good
She's
stuff.
gonna take some time off.
Yeah, well, God bless. Good stuff. And I hope it's enjoyable. All right, then let's move on to agenda item 10, the policy and priority list. Who will take the lead on that there, Charlie?
That's me. Sorry
All
that
right.
you're listening to my voice so much tonight. This, for newer board members, we tried to kind of have a list of what we're paying attention to in the State House. And we update it in January and typically update it again in July as we're thinking about, you know, the following year or what happened. This is, I'm trying to reduce some of it. You know, I think the legislative agenda seems bigger but shorter. I think they're going to spend a lot of time on property taxes and education, healthcare. I was talking to someone about the mood there, and like they said it's a much more serious mood. Like they heard the message from the voters. So that with that context, this is a shorter list than it's been in the past. I'll just quickly run through these topics. The first one is just to let you know that I am appearing in the State House. So I was just there for a couple committees today to just provide a briefing about RPCs and what we do in the state, helping our towns and helping state agencies. And so that is happening right now. I am anticipating the administration is going to be pursuing some additional Act 250 updates beyond what they did last year, you know, which was a big change last year. I don't know exactly the nature of those updates yet. Some of them I am aware of our more technical corrections that are coming out of the Land Use Review Board staff. As they're trying to make things work. But I would anticipate they may be trying to, turn the dial a little further than what got passed last year. Along with that, related to the housing agenda is more infrastructure funding or financing. Expecting something to come out of the administration in the next month or so on that. Transportation bill is just a perennial. Transit financing. Obviously, we know the GMT issues, and GMT. I think they were at House Transportation yesterday morning for the first time. So, or maybe it was this morning. I can't remember. But anyway, that's obviously an issue that needs to get cooked up. And just to let you all know that our community engagement advisory committee, the members there were quite interested in this topic, and I think maybe working with GMT a little bit to provide some testimony of kind of lived experience, the implications of some of the cuts, in the hopes that affects some of the legislators. Climate change, we'll see if anything happens there. Not sure what to expect there. More on resiliency, flooding issues. Number 8 is a big one, I think, or could potentially be a big one for us. There was, you may have heard me mention that they set up a regional and county governance study committee last year. Their report is due at the end of 2025, I think like the end of November or November 15th, 2025. And there was a lot of turnover in the government operations committee chairs. So I think the new committee chairs are just getting up to speed, and I think they're going to reboot that conversation. I did testify to give the RPC briefing in Senate GovOps this afternoon, and I think there is interest there to kind of see how they can better support our municipalities, really. And then the last one. And I've tried not to have this on here too often. It seems a little self-serving, but it did come up in our legislative breakfast. We'll obviously monitor the funding that we're getting, particularly for our regional planning grant. So I don't know. This is also an opportunity for board members if there's other things that you're aware of that might be happening in the legislature that you think I should be paying attention to. This is a good time to raise it. Otherwise, I'm just trying to be transparent with you about the things I believe I'm paying attention to. Any reactions? Thoughts of other issues to pay attention to? I feel like I've numbed you all into silence tonight.
Housing targets.
Housing targets. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Jeff. The housing targets were part of that Act 250 bill. I think they're actually coming out. What I was hearing from state staff was that they were going to come out this week. So I don't know, today's Wednesday. So if not this week, maybe next week they're coming out.
So those are the regional targets that come to us that we allocate?
Yeah, the state, the legislature assigned, the administration would come out with a statewide target and then broken down to each of the RPCs. I've been involved in that work, so I'm a little bit aware of some of the conversations, but I'm not sure. We may get a range. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what comes out. But so stay tuned. I think that's coming out pretty soon.
It probably doesn't include the latest population estimate from July 1st of last year, right?
I don't think so. I don't know. It's pretty broad strokes.
It came out 2 weeks ago. It just came out a couple of weeks ago. So it's
Definitely
already going to be dated.
Yeah, it could be. Bart.
When we get to a further discussion of this for our assignment is to make sure that we cover the methodology, like what methodology did they use to calculate the assignments or targets. And I think that would also be a launch pad, if you will, for a conversation. We're going to then try to assign to municipalities to decide, are we aligning our methodology or not with that methodology? Does that make sense to folks as a consideration?
Some ways, but I'm going to let Taylor respond because I've been talking too much.
Maybe Bard, my understanding of what the targets coming from the administration are informed on normalizing the housing market, but also aspirational. That there's going to be some goal setting by the administration. And so I'm not sure if we can fully replicate what the administration has done, because it won't be based on necessarily a simplified method that we can copy. I also just want to point out that, our planning advisory committee, which is composed of a lot of the planning directors here in Chittenden County, including Keith from Richmond, worked on a draft methodology and looked at a couple different ways we could kind of split that regional target to the municipal level this past year before we got the regional target, in an effort to depoliticize the process. And so we have a draft method ready to go. We want to pop that regional target into it and see if it makes sense, because we've only tested numbers. But we think we've got at least a preliminary method that's going to work, and I'm happy to chat about that maybe next month with you folks if that's worth it.
So that makes sense to me to describe ours. This is not a criticism of you or us, but your description of the state methodology is frankly inadequate.
No, there's a larger document there.
Aspirational.
Yeah. No. So I mean, they're accounting for, natural decay in the housing market in terms of housing loss every year, and they're talking about normalizing the rental vacancy rate up to a level of 5% and kind of factoring in all those things, Bard. But
yeah, so you don't have to do it tonight. I didn't mean for it to dive into it tonight, but maybe to be prepared next time, because I think it would be helpful. And I suspect we're not the only organization that would say, how'd you come up with these? And the same thing I think will happen when we get to municipal level. People will, my experience with these things and funding formulas and allocations and appropriations is often people who are unhappy will impeach the process and the methodology. So just being clear about what they are, I think, would be helpful.
And that's where the notion of these are really aspirational goals and there is no consequences to achieving them or not achieving them at this point. So that I think that's part of the reason we're kind of using the word aspirational, is because it's truly goal setting, just to have a goal out there that we can track against without any consequences, like funding. So I think we're trying to take some pressure off.
It's one step away from that. And I've kind of heard through the grapevine that there could be funding ramifications for communities that do not meet the aspirational targets.
That would be an interesting conversation. Certainly not anything that I think would be useful right away.
Well, but I think it's important to keep ourselves focused on what the end game could reasonably be as communities.
Yeah. Sorry, Joe.
The one last thing I'll just add is, I just want to note that, when we tested some numbers with those planning directors in Chittenden County this past year, those planning directors really stressed that we need to tell a story along with that target to justify it and kind of set up conversations in the municipalities about how to theoretically achieve those targets, and not in any far-fetched way, but a way that's very much grounded in reality. I think in a lot of our rural municipalities, it'll come down to talking about infrastructure and planning for infrastructure over the longer term. Just hopefully that helps.
Sorry, Joe.
Thanks. Some of the topics like climate change, resiliency, regional governance, you guys will monitor what's going on. And is there anything in those areas that you're monitoring for, or any potential threats, or you're just kind of keeping an eye on things? You'll know when you see it, kind of.
Well, yeah, just not sure what might come in those areas, Joe. So just kind of planting a flag of if there's something coming, we'll keep track of it. Yeah, some of it may not be related to our work, could be related to other agencies and things, but yeah, we certainly haven't seen any bills, and this year's been a little interesting that way. I think the legislature was, I don't know, there's kind of a whole change in environment there, with a more balanced legislature, and so I'm not sure what to expect there. So I just kind of say we'll keep an eye out for anything coming in that direction.
Okay, thanks.
Super. Other thoughts on the policy priority list? If not, you can email
Yeah, I
Charlie.
just have one thing to say, or ask Taylor about is when you go to the towns, especially at some of our rural towns, and talk about targets, there's some rural towns like Charlotte that don't have municipal sewer and water. And how is that going to be integrated into that kind of target analysis?
I'm
I'm
going to
not-
punt on answering that until next month, and I can walk through the draft methodology. But Dana, we've been thinking about it.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
High rises on the F5.
Definitely a factor.
Wow. That will be interesting, and we'll look forward to the
Yes.
update, Taylor. Thank you.
I know, Chris, I know your joy. Not only do we have a map, but housing targets to go along with it. Like
I can't wait for the county government to implement them. Oh God, help us all. Oh dear. If we can, let's move on to item 11. I don't have any updates other than I think you all are doing a fabulous job, and thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. But just hopefully you're getting copied. I've asked our planning staff to try to let you know when we're getting to your planning commissions. Just as I did when I went to the select boards in the fall, and let you know. And I tried in those conversations in the fall to give the select board or city council just a heads up that we were going to be starting to work on the future land use maps. And I think this week, and I'm looking at Taylor for affirmation, but I think this week we just started getting to planning commission meetings in a few towns. And so they're getting scheduled. So just a heads up, you may get an email, and the staff working on that is Maya Balasa. You may see an email from Darren Schibler, Kate McCarthy, and Sarah Muskin. Yeah, so one of those 4 planners, you may get an email from, don't be surprised. And really, you don't have to come to the planning commission meeting. Just we want you to be aware because, sorry, shouldn't make light of this, but there could be some interesting conversations that happen, and you may get some like, what the heck is the RPC doing? We're just trying to follow through on the legislation, but and hopefully our towns have done a lot of planning already, so I'm really hopeful that we're just having kind of alignment conversations and not a lot of real policy change. But we do have some towns where there is uncertainty. I can call out as to what's going on particularly around your villages, and where there may be some tougher conversations where we're almost jointly kind of working on what's the area that should be planned for growth or not. So just a heads up, those meetings are starting to happen. Any quick questions on that? Okay. Also to let you know, the executive committee, we're kind of starting they're starting their evaluation process of me. I probably maybe should let Chris cover this topic, but we're doing a staff survey, and I expect Chris, it should be done, I think probably March or April. So anyway, hopefully maybe we haven't typically. I'm sorry, Chris.
Yeah, I'll be happy to chime in. Bard and I have met with the consultant, Jason Lorber, and we're looking at a staff survey to help us with the evaluation for Charlie. If you remember last year, we sort of let the executive director's evaluation slip by a few months, and we wondered what was going on, and Nelson had stepped in, thankfully, and helped coordinate the questionnaire for the staff that had heretofore all dropped onto the chair's lap, but apparently they looked at me and said he's lost enough hair, he doesn't need to have this burden anymore. And Nelson was kind enough to pitch in, but as far as the hierarchical thing, it wasn't perhaps as clean and efficient as we would like. So Jason is helping us, and I think we met to coordinate the questions last week, Bard and I, Charlie was there as well. And this questionnaire is going to go out to staff, and then we'll get it back through Jason, digested through Jason, so that the anonymity will be retained by him, thankfully. And Bart and I will get the results, and we'll share it with the executive committee, and then proceed on with Charlie's evaluation on time this year. And apologies for the delay last year, Charlie.
Oh, no, that was on me. Chris, survey dynamics had nothing to do with you. Legislative breakfast, any feedback from those of you that attended the legislative breakfast for us to think about for next year? Never do it again? Oh, Benjamin.
Yeah, I have to say the feedback from the Westford Select Board and the new town administrator was very positive. They felt that there were a lot of very positive issues that were raised and a chance to really interact with people. Certainly the whole emergency services dispatch question, also housing and wastewater, of course, have been very big issues for us. And a whole variety of other Act 250, Act 181 issues. So they came back with a very positive outlook on all of that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other things to think about for next year? Okay, I guess we'll keep on going down the tracks. And just staff updates, I already kind of mentioned new person in our business office, Kim Smith, starting on the 27th. I think that was really the only staff update other than, babies happening, but you already heard about Ann Nelson's due date, so I don't need to say that. And Chris Dubin, who some of you may have met over time, is also expecting a baby, or well, technically his wife, or late June, I think. So, and Marshall had one July. I can't remember the timing, but so anyway, that's the baby boom I was referring to. I don't think that's all I got, unless anybody has a question for me.
Pretty good. Thank you. All right, members have any items they wanted to bring forward? Benjamin?
Yes, I'm not quite sure how everyone else does it, but in interacting with applications for items for the UPWP, we have a couple of traffic items that are in the hopper. And it seemed, we have a new administrator who's just phenomenal, hit the ground running about a year and a half ago, and she's just really incredible. But we have a tremendous amount going on, and I've tried to kind of have her back. And just for staff, please include me on any responses. Apparently a couple of the applications didn't have all the data that was required, and the best of my knowledge, I did not receive notice of that. And I think that she might have been unaware. We had a discussion and we put out in preparing for this meeting a number of days ago, and she put out a feeler and found out that in fact there were some additional data required for some of our requests for studies. And I just, I would like to be able to, pick up the slack on those things. So please, I don't know how I should go about, other than generally whenever we put something forward, I say, please include me, but I'm just pleading again, just not pleading, but asking, please always include me so that I can help make sure that these things don't fall through the cracks, especially with the application deadline looming. We want to be thorough, we want to be complete, and we want to not have it spill over and be negative on anybody, staff, CCRPC staff, or town staff. So that's why I'm here as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Okay, and Charlie, who would be the point person there for Benjamin of Westford?
Yeah, I think that Benjamin, I think we actually got the additional information we needed, so I think we're all set right now. But in the future, we're definitely going to include you in every correspondence, so you can help your staff and you can help us. We can help each other.
Right. In this case, I don't want to make too much back and forth, but in this case, we feel like we caught this one and we're able to fill in, but I want to try to, prevent exactly these things. So it's not a crisis management, but it's,
Yep.
and yeah, make it easier.
Understood.
So you don't have crunch time and our folks aren't under a crunch too. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jackie.
So along the lines with the UPWP, I'm on the committee as a board member. Unfortunately, all the meetings except the first one coincide with my select board meetings. So in the way the membership is structured, I can still do it, but if there's a board member who, desperately wants to be on the UPWP, you could take my spot. But the decision would have to be made quite soon. So, before the next, yeah.
Andy Watts of Essex.
Did we ever close the public forum?
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Did? Oh.
Yeah, after we voted on the UPWP stuff. Yep.
And so that's for was it 26? Yes.
All right. I should ask Ann Nelson because she's taking the minutes. Did you get that? The motion for closing the public comment period?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we did.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it was
Okay.
Jeff, and Christine. Yeah.
And so Ben would just like better coordination for the communication for UPWP items for Westward. And Jackie would like to find somebody who can find a better night for the meeting. Bart, is that in your control?
No, staff actually schedule it, but I'm reminded of we're looking for a volunteer.
Well, if Jackie can't make the meeting, but
yeah.
So the situation is that the board can have 3 to 6 seats, I think. Jackie was the 4th board member, I think, on the committee. So we're still fine. But if someone did want to take that seat, there's an opportunity if someone wants to. It's 3 meetings. January 27th is the first one, and then kind of the last week of February, last week of March. So it's a pretty constrained obligation or commitment. But if there is a board member that would be interested in being on that committee, this would be a great time to volunteer, and Chris could appoint you.
and I see Ben's hand in the air there.
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
volunteer. Chris, I do want to say it's not that better communication. I don't want that sounds a bit of a criticism, and I didn't have a criticism.
No.
It was just-
I apologize if I
No.
put it that
Thank you.
way.
But
I
so
know
thank
what
you.
you're saying. Mhm.
But if no one else has availability, I'm willing to participate in the UPWP committee. Sure.
Hey, before, just as you do that, maybe we should give you the specific dates and times just to make sure that
Yeah.
you don't have a similar issue.
Yep.
Does staff have that readily available in front of them? I could find it, but it's embedded in my calendar.
I've got it. One second. So it'd be Monday, January 27th at 5:30 p.m. Benjamin.
Yeah.
And it's Tuesday,
February 25th at 5:30
I'm sorry,
p.m.
February what?
25th.
25th. Okay.
Yep. And then it's Tuesday, March 25th at 5:30 p.m.
Yep, I can make that. I will put it in my calendar. I'll be glad to do that.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much.
the Zoom link will be sent to me in an email then, or
yes,
it'll be okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I officially accept Jackie's stepping down and Benjamin stepping up, appoint Benjamin to the UPWP committee for the present cycle of 3 more meetings?
All right, so we'll have the minutes reflect that you just appointed Benjamin to the UPWP committee. Got it.
With a tear in my eye, I accepted Jackie's other commitments, which are important for the town of Colchester. Any other members' items? If not, I will ask you to attend to the 8 committee and liaison activities and reports that are in your packet with links. And was that Jeff calling for an adjournment?
I got one more thing.
Yes, sir. Go
I
ahead,
just
Charlie.
want to call your attention. If you scroll down on the agenda to the bottom of the second page, your chair asked for this addition to the agenda, which is kind of the annual calendar of business items. Thinking that would be helpful to you all to just get a sense of the rhythm of the organization. So hopefully that's helpful, but be glad to get any feedback on what would make that more useful or anything else. So thank you.
Well, as
Thanks,
you
Bruce,
can
for
see,
suggesting that.
if you're looking to schedule vacation, April is a month where we don't have a regularly scheduled, not meeting, but we don't have a regularly scheduled event for
Good night.
CCRPC.
Yes.
Other than that, December is a little lull and August is a little lull. I think people like to see the calendar of events as we have them posted. We have a motion to adjourn. I need a second.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Benjamin. And all those in favor, please say aye and hit the leave button. And all those opposing or
Aye.
abstaining. say
Aye,
around.
be well.
Thank you all.
Good night, all. February 19, we'll see you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Right.